and it's like, okay, you feel this pressure to go down this certain path. But again, had I not gone to CMU, had I not grown up in Santa Fe, I probably wouldn't have had these different opportunities and exposures. And like, had I never gotten a chance to do sports play by play in college, I may never have actually thought, um, it was something I could do, even if it was something I cared about. Um, Same thing with some of the theater and other stuff like that. So I think I just kind of happened to these areas where I got that self-belief and confidence I could do it, where, I think for a lot of people, there's so much pressure to work hard, get the best grades you can, really throw yourself in all of that for preparation for a job. And then it's kind of like, oh shit, I'm in the job. And I think a lot of just kind of our society and culture around education doesn't really want you thinking about weird, funky, interesting alternatives. And, that's probably a whole nother podcast, happy to get into. But for me, I think a lot of it is just, if you're not exposed to those alternatives and then you're kind of just pressured in to a path, just kind of based on what, your kind of culture is, it may not even occur to people.
Right.
What the hell is outside of it. And, I'm lucky, like there's not a ton of jobs necessarily like mine. I think people could make them and find them and whatever, but it's also not something that's necessarily rewarded in our culture per se.
Is there any, so we're painting a pretty rosy picture of kind of your approach, your value system for life, and maybe very rightfully so. I think there's a lot of logic to it. Is there anything that you've seen where it's burned you, where you've been like, you can understand why somebody would look at it and say like, no, that's not the way to do it?
Totally. I mean, and we can maybe get into specifics on some of this in a bit, but, it's especially what it takes to kind of run and do Xpogo. Like it's tiring, I'm on the road a ton. I think in some ways, certain things even feel devalued. Like I'll get into these crazy situations and it's like, oh, okay, whatever, been there, done that. And it's kind of like, you want to get more, it's hard to maintain, relationships and stuff like that. Like I happened into having a cat who kind of adopted me, and it's like, oh, it sucks, being gone too long for him. So there's like lots of things where it's still totally worth it for me and I like it. But, at some point, with anything, too much of a good thing is a good thing. And, unless you're really into it, it can be hard on relationships, on stability.
Does that really, but I asked this genuinely well, so hopefully you'll appreciate what I'm saying, but does it bother you because it genuinely bothers you, where you're like, yeah, it impacts my relationships? Or is it somewhat what we were saying before, where it's like, it feels like it should bother you because that's kind of the norm and that's what you should have relationships? Like, if you're being totally honest, are you like, honestly?
No, it's a good question. I mean, I think it can vary from time to time. And I think I'm lucky in that I have some really good friends who are like there and I can vent to and stuff like that. But like, sometimes it's nice to have someone to come home to, you know what I mean? For lack of a better word, or even, your friend group. It's like, if you're only there once a month, they're having experiences those other 3 weeks where like, you're not building that bond necessarily. Like one great thing about COVID shut us down. And it was kind of like, I had these friends who were sort of casual friends here. And it was like, oh, we're just in Pittsburgh for 9 months, we're a pod. It's like, oh, I know you all so much better now. And it's like, now it's easier for me to go in and out because that bond is there. In the same way in like a romantic relationship, things can work with someone who's comfortable with you being in and out, but it's, just a lot of effort to maintain that. And it is something I think I don't want as much as a lot of other people want at this point in my life. But there are definitely times when they're like, well, that would be nice, for a number of reasons. But, it's unfair to expect for someone else, to have, or it's just difficult to find someone who can really understand and have like a similar level of investment and stuff like that.
Yeah.